Hi, everyone, and welcome to Agiloft's Fall 2020 release webinar. This is Eric Laughlin speaking, the CEO of Agiloft. I want to say thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. We'll be going through I'll be presenting a little bit of information, but mostly passing off to Craig Gordon for a demo of the new capabilities coming out. And during Craig's demo, as well as afterwards, you'll have opportunity to ask questions. You can do that using the GoToWebinar questions section, and we'll be checking that throughout. And we'll certainly have some time at the end to answer some of those questions. So please ask away. So we're super excited to show you the enhancements that we've come up with and what's coming to the platform. Before I begin the demo, I'm just going to share a few highlights from the year that was a great year for Agiloft. So while the pandemic certainly did impact us, our fiscal 2020, which just ended at the end of September, was still the best in the company's history. We added more than 100 new customers from a diverse set of industries, from many geographies. And I see that many of you are here today, so thanks for joining the Agiloft family. We appreciate the trust, and we will continue to earn that. So the last 4 months of our year set sales records, and we feel like we're in a very, very good place. To just highlight a few of the company accomplishments from the year on the next slide, in September, we announced a $45 million growth equity investment from FTV Capital. We think that's really important. A lot of customers are asking for more and more out of their CLM provider. We think, as Agiloft, we need to provide as much as we can for our existing customers. And so we'll use a lot of that money to invest in our no-code platform and the features and functionalities that some of which we're bringing you today, and use that money to invest in making sure that you have the best possible customer experience. That means everything from additional support and customer success personnel to just making sure that you're having a great experience throughout the lifetime that you spend with Agiloft. We're really proud of many of the awards that we've gotten this year. Certainly the analyst awards are fantastic. As you probably know by now, Gartner named us into their leader quadrant in its first Magic Quadrant for CLM this spring. And in addition, they did a critical capabilities assessment across enterprise use case, across procurement, sales operations, and legal. And they named Agiloft the #1 provider in each of those 4 categories. So it was pretty amazing. We followed that up with being named a customer leader and value leader by Spend Matters. And then there's a host of other awards that we've got from Business Intelligence Group, Capterra, Software Reviews. All in, I'm very proud of this team and also really proud of what our customers have accomplished. If you wouldn't be having a great time on the platform, if you wouldn't be saving a lot of money, eliminating a lot of risk, if you wouldn't be getting value out of the platform, we wouldn't get these awards. So thank you to you as well. Now let's move on to the new release. So I think we've got a lot of good stuff to show you, and Craig's going to give you a demo, but just to do a quick overview of what you're going to see. First, lots of improvements coming now and in the short term on our graphical user interface on the GUI. We know just how important it is that not just the admin team, but all of the users of Agiloft have a good experience. And so you'll see in every release we do from now on a continuous journey of GUI improvements. Some of the elements you're going to see now are things like replacing pop-ups with modal windows, a much better email editor, customizable secondary buttons. There's a number of things you'll see. You will see more and more of these things with each release. On the integration side, I think it's very important for us to respect that you live in a company that uses lots of different tools, and we need to integrate with those tools. And so you'll see us working the work that we've done now to improve some of our integrations. And this will be a constant theme as we do more and more releases. So today you'll see out-of-the-box Tableau integration. That's an easy way to sync with Tableau, create those amazing visualizations using Agiloft data within the Tableau platform. You'll see a really great improvement in our real-time Salesforce integration, instant bi-directional updates from both systems, using event triggers like creating a contract or updating a field within a contract. And having data passed back and forth instantly. A great way to engage your sales team in the contracting process, but allow them to stay in Salesforce as much as possible. And you'll also see, and Craig will talk a little bit about our Dell Boomi Connector. This is middleware that allows you to integrate Agiloft with a number of different enterprise systems, your ERP system or CRM system, any other applications, if your company uses Dell Boomi as an integration platform. It's a great way to make sure that Agiloft is connected. On the topic of AI, really proud of the advancements we've made in AI. We've improved a lot of our semantic modeling. We've added many more contracts and clause types. We've trained our algorithms so that we don't have to do as much bespoke modeling. And the whole idea here is to get you started into taking advantage of our AI capabilities and working, making it more seamless to get up to speed quickly. So you'll get into AI-assisted work faster with less bespoke modeling, as well as getting the benefit of much lower migration or data migration costs. I think what's really important in AI is that users don't have to really notice that it's AI and that it just works for them. And particularly now, you'll see use cases where AI is working for contract, data extraction, as well as contract review, particularly with a third-party contract coming over the wall. And that leads into our Microsoft Word add-in, which is one of the places you can experience some of that AI capability. I'm very excited to show off our Word add-in, which brings Agiloft functionality directly into Microsoft Word, a place where many of you and your users live. We want to be able to enable contract creation, review, redlining, and AI-based analysis, such as metadata and clause extraction, and risk scoring, all within Microsoft Word, while the changes are saved automatically back to Agiloft. And then lastly, certainly not least, we're going to do a quick preview of an Rfx module that we're working on now. This should launch more formally in January, February, but just want to give you an idea of some of the things that we're working on to enhance the things that you can do within the Agiloft platform. And I'll say this again later, but just so as this release comes out, these capabilities are going to be available. You'll want to talk to support or to your customer success manager to make sure those get turned on for you if you are interested in them. They won't be automatically pushed out to your instance without you asking. So that gives you as much control as you want over this release. All right, without further ado, I am going to introduce Craig Gordon, who many of you have met before or heard before, senior implementer at Agiloft, and he is going to walk you through our new release features. Over to you, Craig.
Thank you, and welcome to our new release webinar presentation. The presentation today is going to be split into two main sections. First, we're going to talk about the code changes that are going to be available as soon as you are upgraded to the latest code release. And then we're going to talk about some configuration changes that have been made to our out-of-the-box system, and we'll talk more about those later. The first code change that we want to talk about is our upgraded Salesforce integration. So we've done a more in-depth integration with Salesforce, pulling over more pieces and making it a lot easier from the Salesforce side. So here we have an opportunity in Salesforce, and we're just going to go ahead and create a new contract here in Salesforce. And give this a status of draft. We're going to set this to auto-generate. And start date here. I'm going to save this. We're in a contract in Salesforce, and now I'm just going to submit this into Agiloft. Notice everything I've done here has been from the Salesforce side. Now this that contract I just put in, I had that flag there saying we wanted to auto-generate it. So that's an example of a flag you can use. And what it's going to do is it is actually going to auto-generate that from the Agiloft side and send us back the document. And we will see that in just a minute. But what I wanted to show, that's an example of a way you can set the flags for auto-generate from Salesforce to Agiloft. This is an example of one we sent over earlier. You can see we're also syncing over the document here. Once we generate the document on the Agiloft side, we send it back over to Salesforce. So the user, if you want to do this auto-generate option, the user never actually has to leave Salesforce. Everything will show up back here. Now, if we want to see what it looks like in Agiloft, here's one I sent over earlier. You can see this is what shows up in Agiloft. Here's the document we generated again, but also here's all the information that comes over from Salesforce. So we have all the information about the opportunity. This one includes individual products and pricing on them. All of that information is synced over to Agiloft, and then the document, once it's generated, is then pushed back over to Salesforce. So here's our new webinar sample that we just created. And if we go back into Salesforce, take a look at this, you can see, in fact, here is our file that was generated and sent back. So that's our new Salesforce integration, beefed up. The next thing I want to talk about is our Tableau integration. And of course, you're all familiar with our built-in reporting already and what we can do with the dashboards. And these are continually being improved as well. But for the next piece, if you want to do your reporting outside of Agiloft, in Tableau in particular, we have a new integration that makes it very easy. So first I'm going to talk about from the Agiloft side of it. So on the Agiloft side, it's a very easy setup. Once you run any save search in Agiloft, if you edit that search on the Options tab here, there's simply a little radio button to say, yes, I want this available as a WDC, as a web connection from Tableau. And this will give you a URL. And then in Tableau, you're going to simply be able to put in this URL, as we'll see in a minute, to pull in the data. Now you might notice this modal pop up on my screen here. We're going to be talking about those, some of these other changes here in just a second. So in Tableau, this is an example of actually a great dashboard that one of my coworkers put together in Tableau here, using just 2 saved searches that she pulled information from Agiloft out of. So if I wanted to do a new data connection here, I would say new data source, I'd say web data connector, and then I just paste in that URL we had there before. And that's all it takes to pull in the data into Tableau. And then once you have the data in Tableau, that lets you do whatever you want in Tableau to put it together. As I said, this is a great interactive dashboard one of my coworkers put together. You can see where all the contracts are coming from in terms of different states. We have some sliders here, so we can actually modify what we want to look at based on end date. We could look at the top 20. Here we're seeing the top 20 risks, and we could modify that number if we wanted to. It really gives you a lot of different visualization options and interactivity here. Now, the next piece I want to talk about is some of our new UI changes. So there's a couple pieces here that I want to talk about. First, we have the, as we're seeing here, the modal pop-ups. You might notice like this is not a new window, just a modal pop-up in the same window. It helps you, so you're not getting overwhelmed by all these pop-up windows and losing track of where you are. Also, the setup icon has moved up here to the upper right, along with the personal user preferences. They're now here as well. They kind of condense this area, and as the setup is moved. The modal changes and the setup and the user preferences, those are all taking effect with this release, but we're also going to preview some UI changes we're planning for next January. And let me pull this up here. And I'm just going to play this movie a little bit. Yeah. So what we're doing here, we're seeing we're having an option to change to a horizontal menu bar instead of the left pane. You can see, so we keep the sections under each one though. So you can still set up your sections, and then but there'll be a horizontal menu bar with drop downs. You can put your favorite searches in as well. And we're doing a global search, or enhancing the global search up at the top. So you can pick all tables or a specific table. So here I'm going to search specifically on contracts. You can see how the quick search now shows up in the right pane here, showing what search I had just run. And then you can also add custom filters. So here we're going to add a custom filter. And after this, we're going to kind of see how those filters are displayed in the pane, so you can easily keep track of what filters you added and remove them if you want. There's a little X over on the right. So we can continue to add more custom filters, remove the one we had just added, or just work with our results. Also, the action bar, notice up here at the end where I was circling, we've moved where the action buttons are and some of the other commands as well. So these GUI changes, the horizontal menu bar the quick search, the global search up here, and the action bar changes, those are all expected in January. All right. And again, the setup icon, user preferences, those are going to be being rolled out with this current release now. The next thing I want to talk about is our integration with Dell Boomi. Now, Dell Boomi is an integration platform for API management. So it's really just for, if you're dealing with our API, making lots of API calls, Dell Boomi is a system where you can kind of configure those calls and manage them and the workflow that connects them all. So we're not going to be demonstrating this live. I'm just going to be showing a few images we have from it. So this is an image of a Dell Boomi screen. We've set up some of the queries that we're going to be using. I can kind of just go through here. So here's more of a detail where we set up a connection to employees, and then we can you can see the fields in this case that are pulled back from the employees. So this is again all in the Dell Boomi screens. We've done a query to our employees table. You can see here is all the fields that are being pulled back, and then an example of the actual data that's being pulled back as well. So this lets you build these API connections within Dell Boomi, manage kind of when they're launched as well, kind of build the workflows around these calls as well to manage them. And then you have all that data in Dell Boomi, which can then be used and sent off to other systems as well. Dell Boomi is kind of usually a middleware system. Now, the next major piece I want to talk about is our new Word add-in. And this is great fun for us. So we have our new Word add-in here. What you can do is it installs directly in Word on your desktop. And you log into this just as if you were logging into the project. And your Word add-in is configured to look at your particular project. We'll be looking at how it's installed in a little bit. But what it lets you do, there's a number of different things it lets you do. And this is for anyone who's going to be modifying the Word documents on their computer. So anybody who's doing contract lifecycle management or other document management in Agiloft and needs to edit and modify the Word documents. So what I have here, let me pull this out of the way for a second. What I have here is a contract record from Agiloft that I'm modifying. Okay? And I want to point out here the contract start date says November 12th. Okay, and so now once this is pulled into my Word add-in here, so this is a document that was generated from a print template in Agiloft. So we have a print template that generated this. And one of the other related enhancements is when we are generating documents from a print template, we're automatically tagging them. So you might notice a slight green highlight when I mouse over this top section here. This is letting me know that this is a tagged clause. In fact, if I click into it, you can see the little tag there. And if I click on the date here, you get specifically that this is annotated as the contract start date. So not just the clauses, but also the fields, the individual metadata fields that are pulled from the system, those are tagged as well. And what this tagging lets us do is now we can actually modify them in the document and feed them directly back into Agiloft. So I'm going to change this to say November 19th. And I'm going to take out the word not here, an example from this clause. And then now, of course, you can, you can just, if you hit save, it will save it directly back to Agiloft. But there's also this upload to Agiloft option here. And so what this is going to do is this looks and sees, oh, hey, there's been some updates here. And so what I can now do is I can now sync all of those changes back to Agiloft. So I'm just going to say, go ahead and sync those. And now, in fact, I can close this document, save that. And so now back in Agiloft, we have our new document version that I just checked in. And I'm going to save and continue to refresh my screen here. And if we come over here, we can see that our start date has been updated to November 19th. So what that is doing, we can also see if you want to come down here, we also have the contract clauses as well. We'll talk more about them in just a second. So what that does, what that upload to Agiloft does is it takes any changes you've made in the Word document and syncs them back to their origin pieces in Agile. So not just the document itself, but the metadata fields and clauses that were used in that print template to create this document. So that was one example, generating from a document in Agiloft. The other piece I want to show related to this is the contract clauses. So here, when we generate the template, again, this document was actually generated from clauses in the clause library. There are fixed clauses in our library that we knew we were going to use, but this can work for other setups as well, where we're creating here all of the individual contract clauses that go into that document. Now, the reason we're doing this, part of the reason we're doing this is this modified from default here. And what this lets you do now is, as we modified those changes in the Word document, when we sync them back, the updates to the clauses themselves are captured here in these contract clause records. And so there's a couple extra pieces you get here. First, there's just the flag that says, was this modified from the default, yes or no? And this lets you set up triggers or other approvals based on either any clauses having changed or even specific clauses having been changed. You can now track if those were actually changed in the Word document and use those in the notifications and routing. The second piece you get here is that within these contract clause records, you can see the actual changes that were made. So we get the current clause text. Remember, I took out the word not there, the redlined version, as well as the source text. So this one I've actually modified it a couple of times away from the standard and then back. So that's a couple of examples of what you can do with the Word add-in, how when it's a document that's generated from a print template, automatically tags all of automatically annotates, tags all the metadata and clauses that are in the document. So when you modify them in Word, those changes are pushed back into the proper pieces of Agiloft automatically. Now, there's a couple other things you can also do with the Word add-in. Let's open up another document here. Up my test document here. So this is a different document. This one is actually a third-party paper. This doesn't have any annotations on it so far. So from here, what I could do is I could start doing manual annotations if I wanted to. Like I can see the start date here. I could insert clauses from our clause library if we wanted to. So I could just kind of start doing the annotations or clause insertion manually. But in this case, I'm going to say analyze document. I'm going to say master service agreement. So this particular project, so this is hooked up to our AI models. And we do have new AI models that we're bringing online that are faster, of course. But this is, I just want to kind of show the general behavior on this one. So what this is doing, I'm running this through our AI model, and it's going to classify everything in the document for me. You can see my screen starts to scroll like crazy here. So what it's doing is it has now gone through and classified everything in the document and noted everything that it has found. And so if we scroll through here, we can see, actually, let's just jump to this clause. There we go. So developer responsibilities and representation. So it's gone through and tagged these different clauses. You can see here we've got the clause. If we want to skip to any of these, I can just click on the clause here, right? And it shows me information about the text, what it's been pulled from, and we have some basic risk scoring that we're including there. So this is tied in with our AI models, as I said, to do some automatic classification of the document. But I could have also put in that information manually, or if you wanted to, for any reason, you could completely build a document from scratch as well. That pushback to Agiloft, though, I really love that feature when I'm working in a document, because it just easily lets me push that information back up and we get to see all the metadata get updated. All right. Now the next piece I want to talk about, and we're kind of bridging the gap here between the code changes and the configuration changes. So in addition to the Word add-in, the Word add-in is technically a code feature, and I should show you how to download that. But in addition to the features offered in the Word add-in, if you don't want to use the Word add-in, we do have new scripts that have been added to our out-of-the-box system for also for uploading reading clause modifications and trying to push back the tagged metadata. So those are going to be available in our out-of-the-box system. If you're interested in those, but you don't want to use the Word add-in, talk to your CSM, your customer success manager, about if we can move those over to your project. Now, for the Word add-in itself, if you want to get that installed, that is done through the admin setup. So your KB admin will need to do a little bit of initial setup here. So go to Setup, Integration, and we have our Word add-in. And there's a number of different tabs here. But basically what we're going to be going through is how long it wants to remember your login and password once you've logged in. The single sign-on option will be available in the next release. What tables are going to be used for the contract records, kind of what your primary one is. This information is used if you have a new document, so not one that was generated from the system, but one that is either third-party paper or that you're doing from scratch. This lets it actually know where to go ahead and create that document. If you're working with our AI, where is all of the AI information in the system? What table are you using for your clause library, and also the fields about that? Where are your standard metadata fields? How are they tagged? What display settings do you want with some color controls? And then finally, once you've set everything here, then you can download this manifest file. And this manifest file just goes on your computer. And this is what lets the Word add-in know where to go, how everything works. And then you just enable this in Word. And that's how it works. It's actually been pretty easy for me to set up. All right. So outside of the Word add-in, the next piece I want to talk about is some configuration changes. So and this is the last piece in our presentation here. So for one of our other configuration changes, so this is not code-based at all. This is simply configuration changes we've made in our new out-of-the-box system, is we've added an Rfx module, sourcing module. So this is for RFIs, RFQs, RFPs, whatever sourcing events you're looking for. And this is specifically for buy-side events that we've set this up. So this is where your company is creating the sourcing event and other people are responding to it. So we've added a whole bunch of new tables here under the sourcing event management and setup. It's a quite involved module, so we're not going to be going through the whole thing. I just want to show you a few pieces of it. I'm going to open up number 2 here as an example. So here with the events, what you can do is that you have your, of course, the standard layout, standard fields here, who is it being assigned to. You also have publicity level. Is it open response or invitation only? What's the purpose? Related services and products, if you have that. Put in a schedule of events. And then we really start to get into more of it with the actual responses. So we can have evaluation members. What's the scoring criteria? So here, notice all the different scoring criteria. We've got a sort order, maximum, and a benchmark that everybody's going to be scored against. Are you generating the documents from here? And then standard document tracking. What approvals are needed? Then you can also invite individual vendors, and we're tracking which vendors have been invited. And depending on how you've set this up, vendors, you can set it so that only invited vendors can respond, or it can be open to everyone. If vendors send in questions, you can respond and publish them so that anyone logging into the portal can see those responses. And then the selection process, where you can look at the individual responses that have come back and the grading on each of them, as well as the decisions. So basically everything, all the workflow tracked through this sourcing event. And then once you've decided on a vendor for the event, you can then automatically convert that into a contract record. And we're going to come over here and look at number 225. So this is actually a contract that came from our sourcing event setup. You can see we pulled again, we've linked into our sourcing event, pulled over all the information from here. So you get not just the sourcing event and all the responses and the grading and everything on that. You can then use that to create the contract record and connect everything together. And that is our presentation for today. Again, most of the code changes are going to be available immediately, other than the kind of the preview of the UI changes expected for January. For this particular release, because we are expecting another release in January, we're not going to automatically be upgrading all of our servers. So if you want to get this release right now, rather than waiting for the January release, let your customer success manager know so we can make sure that we get your server updated. That update, as I said, will come with the new Salesforce integration, the Tableau integration, some of these UI changes about the setup icon moving over here, and also the word add-in, which I know again is one of the big pieces for this release. If you're not upgraded right now, you will be upgraded expected in January with the next release that has the other upcoming GUI changes. And if you are interested in our sourcing module, please talk to your CSM, your customer success manager, about getting that module added into your KB for use. Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about. Eric, did you have any closing remarks, or do you want me to just go into the question and answers?
Well, I think, yeah, let's go into Q&A, and as you've been talking, I've been trying to group them together so we can hit a few of them at the same time. There are a number of questions on integrations, Craig, and I think to start off by addressing those, there's a question about planned work on a Power BI integration. Yes, that is absolutely on our integration list. There were other questions around Click and around Google Doc integrations. Those are not on our list right now. We haven't received a lot of requests for those, but certainly noted that two folks have asked for those today. Questions around the GUI. There was one question around whether that's accessible for power users only, and I don't think that's the case. I mean, obviously you can choose this. You can choose if you were going to upgrade to that new GUI or not. That's really up to you. And there's a separate. Sorry, there's a little bit of noise in the background. There's a separate question around use of RPA and bots that require some stability in the interface. So question around how much is the interface going to change? And I think what I'd say there is that certainly you should go through the interface with your customer success manager or with support to see what the changes are before choosing to upgrade to those changes. If you want to minimize the number of interface changes you go through, there'll be another tranche of changes in January, so you might wait till then. And then certainly by summer, there'll be enough to go through it again. And that summer release will have more substantial changes around record views and table views and things like that. And so I would consider that when you're thinking about how that might affect RPA that you've set up. There was a series of questions around the word add-in. I think there was probably the most questions around that. And so, Craig, I might certainly need to lean on you for some of these. There was the question that we tried to answer in the middle around Mac. I just got some updates from that while we were talking that our internal users who are Mac users and have been using the word add-in certainly have found that to be to work in their Mac environment. So that's a yes. I think we still need to do some more testing just to feel really good about it, but our internal users have been using it successfully. There was another question about who can download the word add-in. Is it only admins? Does everybody have access? I think our preferred pattern is that you use an Office 365 deployment where an admin can create an access group and push out the manifest file to all the users in that access group. So you can certainly pick and choose who you want access to, and if you have an enterprise, if you want to push it out to a number of people in the enterprise, you can do that through access groups. Craig, I'll lean on you for some of these other questions. If there's a custom clause library, should all of this still work? I believe the answer is yes, but do you want to?
Yeah, that was one of those setup screens.
Yep.
Setup integration word add-in, where here's how if you're using a different table for your clauses, this is where you point the add-in at that table and tell it where the different pieces of the clauses are in the system.
Thanks, Craig. There's another question about clause comparison and does that work for third-party paper? And certainly it does. I believe you have to have the AI turned on to have that compare against your clause library and do that comparison analysis. If you're using, if you're comparing changes to a print template, then obviously we don't need that. Don't need that AI. It's going to do that automatically. There's a question around whether clauses can be locked in bulk. Craig, do you have an answer to that? I think we were talking.
Yeah, I don't think they can right now, but that is, I know something that the add-in team is working on.
Okay.
They're continually. Yesterday they said, hey, we've got some new things we want to push out to the add-in. Should we wait until after the webinar? And I said, yes, please wait until after the webinar before making any changes.
Very good. There's a question about, is there a limit to how large the clause library can be? Are there any limits that you know of, Craig?
There are none that I know of.
Okay. All right, very good. I think that was the bulk of the questions on the Word add-in.
I see one that I want to address. How will it handle date changes if the date field has been formatted in the print template, such as 12th day of July 2020? I was actually just testing yesterday with a document that looked like that, and it worked fine.
Great. Question on AI, are the models for English only? I believe that most of the models have been trained in English. I don't know how much we've done on non-English language. That's something we can follow up on.
Yeah, and I think that's the models themselves would work on any language, but they've been specifically out-of-the-box models have been trained on English.
Yeah. There's a question around version control and how it handles uploaded versions updated by a customer. I don't see that now that I'm saying that, but.
Yeah, I see it. So how does the version control handle uploading versions updated by the customer? It depends on if you're giving your customers direct access to the system, which most people aren't. If you were, then it would act the same for them. But normally, the normal integration with customer updates is through email. In that case, when you send out an email to the customer, they send back their new version of the document. It gets uploaded into the attachments table as a new record. In that case, you just need to specify you need to tell it what the previous version to compare against is. So it won't automatically grab the previous version, but you can indicate that in the attachment record.
Great. There was a question around the availability of the improved Salesforce integration, and that's now, right? That's available with this release. Obviously, you have to do some work with our customer success team, support team to make sure that, or professional services team to make sure everything's set up to take advantage of that. Any other questions in here you see, Craig, that you want to answer?
Yeah, there were a couple. Let's see. The Tableau integration can be used in existing setups. You just need to update to the new code base because really it's a change in the search wizard. So you can that's available for anybody who updates to this release.
Do all AI functions require the use of an external service, Craig?
They do not. I mean, I'm not sure what they mean by external service, but most of the AI pieces come in here in the configuration. Out of the box or with our default AI configuration, at least for cloud customers, we offer AI models that are hosted on AWS, and that there's some are kind of our standard ones we just host ourselves. Customers can also, however, set up a new AI model connection if they have their own AI models they want to use. Generally, these AI models do not live on the server itself, so I'm not sure what they mean by what the question means by external connection there. It's not a third. The AI models are we're out of the box are owned and run by Agiloft, so it's not a third party that's getting involved in them.
Great, and then a couple housekeeping questions. Will this video be available? If so, when? Yes, this is being recorded. Be a link to the slides in the recording that we'll send out. That'll be available on our events and webinars page at agiloft.com. Any other housekeeping questions? Oh, I see.
Yeah, there's one. Can the contract library be used offline? No, you have to be connected to the Agiloft KB to read it. Version control, can you elect to use the old view where only the latest version is displayed? Yes, that's actually, the way I was showing is a configuration change rather than a code change. So yeah, you just, if you're using the old view where only the latest version is displayed, that will continue to work for you. And oh, you do have to update to use metadata in the print template. Yes. I mean, technically, the print templates have always pulled metadata from the system, but in order to get the pushback from Word into the metadata fields, you'll need to update because it uses the tagging in Word, and that's a new feature. And here I'm getting actually, I can show you, in fact, in the print templates. So kind of in the print template itself here, there's an option down here to automatically tag field and formula references in the print template, along with the reference to the clauses. And the question, is there a limit on the amount of documents that can be stored in Agiloft? Not functionally. We have customers with hundreds of thousands of contracts, I think. I don't see any other questions. I think we've gotten them all.
I just see a note from Bridget Craig to show them the print template setup options.
Yeah, that's what I'm showing.
Okay. Good. Okay, and I think the last question here is when. I think another person asked, when is this all available? And the answer is, as of today. You just have to reach out to upgrade using reach out to your support or to customer success manager, and they can work with you to get everything upgraded. All right, very good. Thanks everybody for your engagement, for your questions. Craig, thanks for the demo. Yeah, we are very excited to release this out. As you know, you have control over whether you're getting these upgrades or not. So work with support, work with customer success, make that decision, and we hope you enjoy everything. We are working hard on our next release and appreciate the input that everyone's given today. If you have additional input on what you'd like to see or additional integrations that we should have on our list, please let us know that as well. And we'll try to take all of your input into consideration as we build towards our next release. Well, thanks everybody for your engagement, and have a great day. Talk to you soon.